What's up, Warriors fans? It's your man Max here for Warriors Latest. As always, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell as I do post new Warriors videos daily. Now, it has been a slow week in Dub Nation, I know, but there have been some interesting developments going on around the league that do affect the Warriors indirectly and as well as directly. We know that the Jonathan Kuminga situation is likely going to drag on into September, maybe even to October if he re-signs on the 2-year deal or even on the qualifying offer. And looking more into it, I'm not as opposed to him signing the qualifying offer and really betting on himself because we know it's going to be a great year and he's going to really go above and beyond with that chip on his shoulder and become the player that he's going to be and get that contract that he wants in unrestricted free agency. So we'll see what happens with that if he does decide to sign that 2-year deal. He's going to get his money, but he'll end up elsewhere, either in February or in July of next summer. So that's that. But that being said, I did hear some interesting news regarding the new owner, Dundon and the Blazers. And now I know I talked about this before, and you guys said, all right, a little crazy for talking about this. But I did some research into the Blazers, their current contract situations, and they have a lot of expiring deals and a lot of young players on like lower deals. And Tom Dundon, the new owner, who I look more into, wants to be aggressive in the rebuild for the Blazers, not only with fan engagement, but also with understanding the type of winners that he wants on his roster. Now, in his previous experience, he has turned around the not the Nashville Predators, but the Carolina Hurricanes, who in turn missed the playoffs 9 straight years. And since his ownership started, they've made the playoffs every year and have made the conference finals 3 total years, including this past year. Now, I'm not the biggest hockey fan. To be honest with you, I'm barely a hockey fan. I root for the Jets in Winnipeg, mostly because I like their hats. And when I'm not rooting for them, I'm rooting for the Anaheim Ducks because they just re-imaged their logo back to their original Mighty Ducks logo, and I love wearing their hats. So I don't know a lot about hockey. I'm not going to lie to you, but being aggressive in a rebuild is important, and that experience in rebuilding a team such as the Portland Trailblazers is going to pay dividends with Dundon's previous experience. Now, we know how aggressive rebuilds can go well and they can go badly. We saw what happened with Matt Ishiba in his rebuild of the Suns. Even though it wasn't really a rebuild, it was more of a adding on to that team that made the finals in 21, and it just completely imploded. And now they're just going through a complete rebuild with very few draft options, and they still have to remain competitive. So I think with Dundon, he sees that and uses that as a prime example of what not to do. Now, looking at what should be done, he's probably going to look at teams like the Seattle Supersonics back in the day when they first did their rebuild in '07, or the Boston Celtics when they did their rebuild after the Big Three era came to a close. And what did both of them do? They cleaned house, like completely cleaned house. They got rid of all their contracts. They cleared up as much cap space as possible and took in as much draft capital as possible, regardless if they were trading away young players or they were trading away veterans. Now, we look at the Blazers right now. They have a good mix of veterans and young players that don't exactly fit what they're trying to do. Dundon wants to go in and really be aggressive, learn what these players are about, and say it's basically a yes or no with keeping them or not. And that goes with the front office as well, as he's probably going to look to trade a lot of young guys that the front office likes, but he doesn't particularly like because they don't have the right attitude. And because of this, this is where the Warriors need to take serious advantage. And I've talked about this before, but looking more into it, there is reasons for the Warriors to be aggressive with them. Now, the Blazers are going to want to extract at least 1 or 2 first-round picks in any trade that they do with the Warriors. Now, we look at guys like Shaden Sharp, who was benched several times, even though he is a high prolific scorer for the Blazers. That's all he can really do. And unfortunately, because of his lackluster defense, Billups benched him several times last year. Now, should the Warriors trade a first round pick and maybe Pods or somebody in that rotation piece that they could get rid of, say like Moody or even Buddy Hield. Like that's the thing. I'm not a big fan of either like Pods, Moody, or Buddy Hield, mostly because they're small. And this Warriors team, if they're going to compete for a championship, need to get bigger. And by bringing in a guy like Shaden Sharp, or just even going after a guy like Donovan Clingan, or just some big guy that brings a presence to the Warriors that they could use in a potential championship run, I'm okay with giving up those guys in exchange for that. And least likely is going to be Jeremy Grant, but it's a thought. I'm not particularly on board with it, but he kind of fits the timeline, even though he has a player option after 2027. That player option during the Warriors rebuild is going to at least have a decent amount of value for teams that want to get under cap and want to get under either the second apron or first apron and really just stay away from being taxpayers. So I do see that as being an asset. I don't know how they would trade for it. It would likely involve a third team or even Jonathan Kuminga, and I don't see them bringing in Kuminga right now since Dundon's not going to become the full owner until what is it, March 31st of next year. So that's going to be past the trade deadline, and he's going to be more aggressive during the during next summer instead of this summer. But it sort of gives an idea that okay, best case scenario for if the Blazers management wants to keep their job is to completely clean house outside of Dame Lillard, who I know Dundon's going to love because he is that high value competitor, that guy who is a Portland diehard and wants to be a part of the team. Now, everybody else, I feel like they're on the trade block in exchange for as much draft capital as possible. And right now, draft capital is not too valuable for the Warriors as they haven't really been able to do much with it outside of, I want to say, Jordan Poole, but we all know how that ended. So if the Warriors are going to do anything, they got to continue to just pester the Blazers and find a way to make a deal that really helps them. Now, on top of that, some outside of the Warriors realm has been Nikolai Vucevic and him playing for Montenegro in EuroBasket. Now, EuroBasket starts next week, and pretty much anybody from that is from Europe in the NBA usually plays in EuroBasket to really ramp things up towards training camp. And I do love it. I'm going to spend some time watching it next week, but the NBA is going to send a lot of scouts over there, and the Warriors should do the same. Like, since Nikolai Vucevic, he is the top tier guy for Montenegro and has been cleared to play. Yes, the Bulls said, okay, we're not going to trade you right now since we want to keep you past the past training camp and going into the season. But I think if Montenegro makes a deep run and you've got Warriors scouts there, okay, maybe it changes the Warriors' opinions on him, and they say, okay, maybe we should trade like the likes of Moody and Buddy Hield to the Bulls in exchange for Nikolai Vucevic, and then have him in a three-man rotation with Quentin Post and Al Horford. Now, that would make a great post presence, as not only would Vucevic and Al Horford stretch the floor, but you also have Vucevic teaching Quentin Post how to really be a force in the middle to really muscle with those big guys. Because we saw what happened versus the Timberwolves. Even when Post was in there, he couldn't hang with the likes of Rudy Gobert. And that's just going to, like I say, that's going to be a problem moving forward if the Warriors want to win a championship. And I want to see Steph get one more. Now, we always have that pipe dream hope of LeBron getting bought out right before training camp and signing with the Warriors, but that still remains to be seen because I just don't know. I at this point, after him congratulating Luka on the extension, I don't know. I'm sort of waiting and seeing what happens with LeBron. Yes, he's still on vacation. He's probably not going to be back until after EuroBasket, but he will be in tip-top shape, so I'm not worried about that. Now, with EuroBasket going on, there are also going to be other guys there that the Warriors could sign at that minimum deal. And it could be the likes of Danilo Gallinari, the likes of, say, some other unknown player that it was over in the EuroLeague. It's like, okay, let's sign you to a rookie deal. We we all saw what happened with Gershon over in France after the his showing in the finals game of the Olympics last year. He had signed to a deal. He had already spent a few years over in the league with the Celtics, but didn't really catch on. We're going to see EuroBasket as an opportunity to do that. And as like, this is sort of a win-win right now for the Warriors because now that all the other teams have really wrapped up their roster and put all their guarantees on their roster, the Warriors now have that opportunity to say, hey, we've been patient and now's the time to strike. We're seeing European players that are ready to go, ready to play, and ready to be part of a championship team over these next 2 seasons and really be a top tier contributor. Now, outside of Vucevic, I did see Danilo Gallinari as being a potential big play for a minimum contract with the Warriors, but he is 37. However, he did just win the championship in the Puerto Rican League. So that's at least something. And I see since he's 6'10 and a good stretch the floor shooter, and he was only out of the league for a year. So it is possible to see him come back. But there are guys like that. And on top of that, you see other minimum guys like Ben Simmons, Malcolm Brogdon, Seth Curry, DeAnthony Melton. We already know that Al Horford's going to be here. There are plenty of other guys that the Warriors can now bring in because, well, it's either you come with us at a minimum or you go to the Euro League where you might not get playing time or a good contract comparable to the NBA in terms of quality and payment on time. So they do have the advantages of standing pat so far, even though they've been dealing with the Kuminga situation, might start to finally pay off because you're out of options. You have to come with us or go to Europe, or worst case scenario, go to China. And if you want to play in the NBA, going to China to really at least develop your game isn't the best idea, as it's more of an entertainment based league rather than a serious competitive league. I mean, we all saw what happened all those years ago when J.R. Smith scored 50 points off the bench playing in China. That's just like, what? I can't even imagine. But bottom line is, should Montenegro make that strong run and the Blazers start to be really aggressive in the rebuild, it creates a lot of interesting opportunities for the Warriors. And right now, those interesting opportunities are exactly what the Warriors need because they need to really start getting their roster settled as training camps gets closer and closer. And apparently training camp's been moved back a couple weeks, so it's going to be mid-September. So they have a little more time, which I do like, but they want a solidified roster. As I've said on multiple occasions, if you're going to be a championship team, roster movement during the season has to be at a minimum. So if you want Jonathan Kuminga here, just let him sign the qualifying offer. Don't worry about that 2-year deal because you're not going to trade him midseason and expect to get better. I mean, let's be honest. Yes, the Warriors did get a lot better when they acquired Jimmy Butler midseason. They look like the Warriors of old, that championship team in 2016, 2017, 2018, the one that dominated. But unfortunately, after Steph went down, things didn't work out. Now, believe the only time a midseason trade has led to a championship was the '04 Pistons when they traded for Rasheed Wallace. Now, that really started the dynasty, but then for them, that was just what pushed them over the edge. If I remember the season before, they did make it to the semifinals or even the conference finals in '03 against the Nets. So they were right there, and the Warriors aren't exactly right there, and a player that coming in at midseason isn't going to get them over the top. So they need to solidify everything by training camp in order to be that championship team. And with the likes of Montenegro doing well, looking at Nikolai Vucevic, as well as taking advantage of the Blazers' aggressive rebuild, are going to be the places to look, along with the new minimum guys they may find in EuroBasket, as well as the guys that are out of options. Now, that's all we have today for Warriors Latest. As always, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you like what you heard today. And if you have any other ideas for the Warriors to trade, whether that be players to get rid of or players to bring in, feel free to comment below, as I love reading your comments, as they always bring new ideas to the table. And as always, go Dubs.